it, GPT-5, the newest, fastest, coolest AI in the West. Or is it? KDP changes its rules regarding images, audiobook sales surge again, and AI Thomas gets an upgrade. All of this and more in this episode of Author Update. I'm Thomas Umstattd Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Scherger, and our first story of the day is OpenAI launches ChatGPT-5. Yes, we have a newer, shinier, faster version of AI, which is just what everyone needs. It is faster, it is sharper, it is smarter across coding, reasoning, and writing. Now, there's a really interesting number that Thomas found that... Do you want to share it? I can share it. Do you want to share it?
700 million users.
Thomas wants to share it. 700 million people. You see, I thought it was going to be like 10 billion. There was going to be more users of ChatGPT than there were human beings on the planet. But
and this is
700 million users is great.
And that's, well, it's big. I don't know if it's great. And those are weekly active users, not monthly active users, but weekly active users. So every week, 700 million people use ChatGPT, which, for some comparison, there's only about 350 million people in the United States, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, which means this is twice the population of America using just ChatGPT. We're not talking about Gemini. We're not talking about Grok or Claude. Just this one LLM is used by 700 million people. So everyone is using AI, which is why the story is so important, because ChatGPT is the most popular of all of the AIs in terms of total users.
Right now, this is the Walmart of AI, at least Walmart in the 90s. Everybody is going to Walmart to get their stuff. And right now, free users are getting basic GPT-5 access. So even free users are getting access to the new model. Plus, subscribers are getting higher usage limits and access to Pro. And Pro users unlock extended reasoning and unlimited use. And so for authors, really, it's that extended reasoning part that you really want to take advantage of if you're going to do this kind of thing. I'll present usage on a spectrum to see how comfortable you are with AI and how afraid people are of it or whatever. You can upload your whole manuscript into GPT-5 and get it to conduct an array of tasks for you and see what it spits out. You can get marketing, ideas and, potential story bibles or whatever it is that you're looking at. I'm currently workshopping my Exorcism of Tiny Tim book, and I'm finding out all kinds of stuff about 1870s London, based on the other elements that I'm putting in, which is involving ancient Egyptian mythology. So it's spitting out tons of very useful information, and it has good ideas, and it also makes you feel really good when you throw in, another prompt in there, like, oh, well, what kind of bird would this be used here? It'll be like, brilliant, that's a great idea, and it makes you feel really good about, suggesting something else to it.
So I watched the announcement that OpenAI put out about this model. And what's interesting about ChatGPT-5 is that it's the first AI announcement in a long time to actually mention writing in the announcement. So in the Grok 4 announcement, at no point did they ever mention writing stories or speeches or eulogies or anything. It was all about research and science and programming. And typically when you watch these updates, all they care about is the developers, because the developers are the ones who are spending the most money on AI tokens right now through the API. But OpenAI claimed to make improvements to the quality of the writing, and in my initial test, that seems to be true. So it's a better writer. So if you're actually using ChatGPT to help you with writing, it is better. The biggest improvement in ChatGPT 5 is a branding improvement. So gone are the days of 01, 03, 04, 40, 04, and 40 mini.
But it's all so
of which,
understandable.
And 4.1 and 4.5, all of which were all available all at the same time, and none of them were the best overall, right? So you think, 4.5, that's the biggest number. Is that the best? No, it's only the best in certain tasks. 4.1 is better at other tasks. They've gotten rid of all of that, and now it's just 5. Now, in some ways, this is good. because we've gotten rid of the confusing branding, but they still have all of these different models running under the hood. So it's kind of like when you switch to USB-C and all the plugs were the same, but the cables don't always work because is this USB-C with Thunderbolt? Is this
Yeah.
USB-C with fast charging? And so it kind of moves where the problem is. Now,
I'm waiting for ChatGPT Vista personally.
now what they promise is that it will detect whether or not you need reasoning or not, and these kind of other modes, and then it will kind of step in. In my initial tests, it's not particularly good at that. And so if you're paying for it, you can manually force it to use that smarter model, which is GPT-5 reasoning, which you may want to do. But I've been testing this all day. I've been doing prompts in GPT-5 and then those same prompts in Grok 4 and kind of running them against each other. Grok 4 was the previous leader in all of the benchmarks. If you go to the benchmarks right now, it's split. So GPT-5 is winning in some benchmarks. Grok 4 is winning in some other benchmarks. There was some very horrendous charts where I think they used ChatGPT to generate charts that were hallucinating. And one of the charts that ChatGPT-5 hallucinated was on the fact that it hallucinates less. And that was in their actual presentation.
I'm okay.
So all of X has been roasting OpenAI all day today on their crimes against charts, because there is like cheating with charts a little bit where like you don't show zero, so it makes changes look more significant than they are. And then there's just straight up lying with charts where like some numbers are showing to be bigger than other numbers, even though it's the other way around. So I would not use GPT-5 to do charts. They're like, this is a PhD level assistant. It's like, I think that PhD may have plagiarized some of those assignments.
It's the dog sitting in the fire. This is okay.
Yeah. So what this means is that Xbox is now the king of confusing naming. There was a rivalry between who had the worst naming conventions. Xbox Series S 1 or Xbox One Series S. Now Xbox is back on the throne with confusing names. ChatGPT now just has 5, and I expect they're going to keep it this way. So, 3 months from now we'll get 5.1, and
No,
then
I
we'll
hope
get
they
5.2.
do Chat G, lowercase g, PT. So it's like super impossible to figure it out.
Yeah. So some more things I've noticed about ChatGPT as I've been testing it and doing research on it. One is that it's very cheap. So for most of you, the way that you use an LLM is through the official chat provided by the company. So you go to chatgpt.com to use OpenAI's models. You go to grok.com to use XAI's models, etc. But for those of us who have to pay for tokens, so like I do through some of my Patron Toolbox tools, ChatGPT is way cheaper on a per token basis, and it's way faster. And so in some ways, instead of being smarter, it's just way, way cheaper. So it's closer to the Gemini pricing and even cheaper, depending on which of the GPT-5 models you're using, even cheaper than Gemini. So that is, if you're using the API, which I realize for most of you, this is too technical, so I'll move on quickly. But if you're using the API, GPT-5 is a price cut, and a significant price cut, potentially, depending on which of the other models you were using. And so I will say this in terms of its performance, a lot of the things that people are really excited about features-wise in terms of the ChatGPT app were features that we've already had in Grok since Grok 4 or earlier. So people are like, wow, there's an answer fast button. That's so cool, because if it starts reasoning a whole lot and you just want a quick answer, there's a button you can click and get a quick answer. Well, Grok's had that for a while. So in
Is
my
there an
experience,
answer fast button on you, Thomas? Does AI Thomas have that button?
oh, you cut me deep. You cut me real deep. So if you're the kind of person who always uses the best model available and you just switch from Claude to Grok to Gemini to GPT, this is a very small improvement. But if you're married to ChatGPT like Jonathan is, and you don't use any of its competitors, then this is a big step up for you, especially if you've been using 4.0 primarily.
One man, one woman, one AI, just like God intended, Thomas.
So The big question I had, and this is one of the most important things for authors, is the context window. The context window. And so, why does the context window matter? If you want to say upload your book and then get questions or build a compendium off of your book, the context windows really matter because
Yeah.
as you fill up your context window, it starts to vectorize the data. I guess the best way to think of this is like compressing a JPEG where it gets blurrier, and which means that the kind of like asking about details, like when was such and such character born, that kind of information, which is exactly the kind of information you want to get, is exactly the kind of information you can't get
Right.
once the context window gets exceeded. And
But it will lie to you and it will make stuff up.
right. And so the faster you fill your context window, the faster it will start hallucinating, which gets really frustrating,
Right.
especially if you're using it for your own book because you know what the truth is. So you can spot the hallucinations right away.
Unless
So
you didn't write your book.
nobody's advocating for that. So ChatGPT has a 400K context window, which is fairly large. It's bigger than Grok and Claude, but significantly smaller than Gemini. So for big compendium tools, all of the compendium tools in the Patron Toolbox all run on Gemini. I'm not moving them over. Gemini supports up to 1 million context tokens. And maybe like, well, that's way more than you need to upload a book. It's like, well, you need context for more than just the book. You need the context for the reasoning. You need the context for all of the in and out and back and forth. And if you want it to pass that needle in a haystack test, you don't want to be pushing it to its limit on the context window. So this is, I think, the biggest thing for authors that nobody's talking about is context windows. And we need bigger ones. Authors and programmers both have kind of similar needs when it comes to context windows. I will say I played around with the search mode, and I much prefer the Grok for search to the GPT-5 search. It is not very good at discriminating between quality sources and high quality sources and low quality sources. So I was looking up some publishing news, and it cited some location. It just said homepage. It's like, who has such terrible SEO that their homepage is called homepage? So I click on it, and it was some publishing news website that was by some anonymous person. Every single thing was just AI generated articles. And it's like, this isn't a source. this might be useful, like a Wikipedia page, but it's like, this isn't the kind of source I want my AI using to generate a report for me. This is birds throwing up in each other's mouths back and forth. And I don't see that sort of mistake made with Grok. That said, OpenAI's GPT-5 also has a like deep research mode. It's like a research report mode. And I ran a report on that I posted to authormedia.social that you can check out. So if you go to authormedia.social on the publishing tab, I did an analysis on Spotify's audiobook royalty program compared to Audible's new royalty program. So both companies have recently launched a new audiobook whole offering, and it compares and contrasts the offerings, what it means for authors, where they came from, and it's actually a shockingly good analysis. So, but it took like 10 or 15 minutes to generate. So I was like, generate this report. It asked me some questions, which I thought was really smart to clarify. So it did its research in the right direction. And then I went and took a shower. And I came back from the shower and I had this big, long, 3,000 word report. You can check it out if you'd like to. That kind of report I can see being very useful for an author who's doing research on 18th century tavern culture, right? It's like, my adventurer is walking into a Victorian tavern. What's it like, right? Reese, give me a report. What kind of songs are they going to be singing? Are they going to be smoking? What are they eating? And so it's really good at that kind of question and answering.
So a little commercial from Joanna Penn. She does have a webinar called the AI Assisted Artisan Author, which helps you discover how to work effectively with AI tools to improve your writing process and your author business. If you are interested in learning more about how to incorporate AI tools into your author business, not so much on the creative side unless you're doing research, but more on the business side, on the marketing side, Joanna Penn has really been at the forefront.
Well, she also teaches on the writing side. So I actually I paid to go to one of these webinars she did earlier. And I really like her approach here because you can't have a course on AI because it takes months to put a course together, and by the time the course is finished, it's already out of date.
Yeah.
Because if I published a book on ChatGPT last week, it would have been talking about GPT 4.5 and 4.1 and when should you use O3, and none of that matters anymore. And so nobody does a better job than Joanna with staying on the cutting edge of stuff. And I have affiliate links to both of her webinars. I really encourage you to go to those. I have an episode I'll be doing with her on novel marketing soon on GPT-5 specifically. But those webinars, you get, it's not just the training, but you also get a bunch of prompts. It's really good overall training on not just how to use ChatGPT, but how to do book trailers and basically every different kind of AI tool she touches on, from the writing into the promotion to the research. It's very solid.
Yeah, there are basic baseline things that you use tools for, right? I need to build my house, and whether that's with hammers and screwdrivers or power drills and laser levels, they're accomplishing the same thing that you need. It's just understanding the new and updated tools that could make it faster. Okay,
Right.
so if you're looking at a course or a webinar from a baseline, how to understand how a source works, what Thomas is saying, what's a good source to look at, then you can attend those kinds of webinars that tell you here's how the tools are operating on common sense tactics or common sense strategy to make you more successful. If you're going in, like Thomas is saying, if you're going into one that says, and this is how Claude 4 will improve your manuscript generation, well, I mean, it's going to be Claude 7 by the time that course is released.
Right. But with her webinar, she's got two, one at the beginning of the month and one at the end of the month. The one at the end of the month is different than the one at the beginning of the month because it's basically a snapshot in time of what's up to date. One final thing on GPT-5 that's important, and I haven't had a chance to test this yet, but they're using an entirely different approach to safety that actually could really negatively impact authors. So previously, if you were an author writing a mystery and you wanted the bad guy to kill somebody with poison, if you told ChatGPT, I'm an author, I'm writing a scene where the bad guy uses poison, it would be useful to you because it'd be like, oh, okay, this is for a non-threatening purpose. It's just for a book. It's fine. Well, that's not safe according to OpenAI. And so now those kinds of prompting tricks won't help. And now it looks at the output rather than at the input when it comes to safety. And so you may find that ChatGPT is now giving you very vague answers. So it's not going to just say, no, I can't help you with that anymore. It's going to be worse, where it's going to give you a very vague, non-specific answer and kind of dodge like a politician. It's like, so what part of the budget are you going to cut? It's like, we're going to cut the pork barrel spending. Right. But which pork barrel spending? The unnecessary pork barrel spending. Right?
Thank you for your specificity.
Yes. So they have now added abstract talking politician mode to GPT-5. You may find that the other AIs are better at research, but this needs to be tested. I didn't really know how to test this, and I didn't have time. I don't write murder scenes, so if any of you are mystery novelists who use because I talk to a lot of mystery authors who will use AI extensively for researching.
It's research advancement, yeah.
Right? And another thing, and maybe I could test it on, is gun details. Right? Will it talk about the Sig Sauer P320 and whether or not it will shoot itself or whether it's drop safe? So
some of us are doing research on how many times does a bullet ricochet when it hits a zombie who's been rotting for 3 days.
And so that's actually a perfect example of when you really want the AI to take this seriously and pull in all of this medical research and give you a really specific answer and not kind of blow you off and not laugh at you. Because a lot of experts, if you're want to sit down with a medical doctor and be like, okay, so this zombie's been rotting for 3 days and a bullet ricochets off, how many times will it ricochet? They're like, this is what you want to ask me about? But if you want to get that sort of thing correct, then it may be irritating. Now, when it comes to jailbreaking an AI and having more flexibility and having it nag you less, that actually takes us to our next story, which is OpenAI launches Openweight models. Jonathan?
OpenAI has broken new ground by releasing its first open-weight large language model since GPT-2 in 2019, unveiling GPT-OS 120B. Jesus.
They named
OSS.
these badly on
It's, oh my
purpose.
gosh, it's back. You guys need to like talk to each other. These models are what's called open weight and can be run on new laptops. Now, Thomas, when I hear the term open weight, that means skinny guys can fight big guys in the arena. What does open weight mean?
So when you have a large language model, you have this kind of data set, and then you tune the weights statistically in terms of what kind of answers that data set gives you. And a lot of the AIs are all buying their data from the same handful of vendors. And part of what their competitive advantage is how they weight the answers, how they tune it to be more however it is. And you can tune it in any number of directions. And an open weight model is open source. So this open weight model is open source. You can download it, you can install it on your computer, and you can run it yourself, and you can tune it yourself to be more snarky or to be more conservative or what have you. And the big advantage of any sort of open source model, there's a couple of advantages. One, you have higher privacy. So you're not using it in the cloud. It's all on
Right.
your computer. So some people, the reason that they don't use AI is that they're concerned about um, interception of sensitive information. That's not a particular concern for most authors because most authors want the AIs to be familiar with their book so that they'll recommend their book. But for other people, if they're talking about medical things or maybe they're really sensitive about their book, knowing that it's never being transmitted over the cloud even securely can set them at ease.
Or if you're a military intelligence analyst is conducting an analytical heat map of signals for a particular region, please use the open weight model.
And tune it yourself. Although, really, I would talk with your command. They may have a special proprietary proprietary model for you. So, if you have a modern laptop, so one with a really fast GPU, so like a M4, M4 Pro or M4 Max Mac, you can run this on your machine, which means it's actually cheaper. You don't have to pay for a subscription to one of these other tools. You can actually run it on metal on your machine, and it can be, depending on how fast your computer is, way faster, or at least historically faster than doing it over the cloud. I will say GPT-5 is so insanely fast. It generates text faster than I can read the text, and it starts really quickly. So it's more customizable and it's faster. So what are the downsides of running an AI on your machine? It requires a powerful computer. So that $400 PC that you bought a few years ago isn't going to cut it. It's also not, it's never going to be as smart. So OpenAI's last open weight model that they released was GPT-2. And this is the first time they've released an open source model. They've been completely surpassed by all the Chinese AIs. So DeepSeek is really good. And then the other one is called Quinn. Those are both open source, and those are actually more popular for running an open source AI. But OpenAI, their whole goal was supposed to be open source for everything. That's why they're called OpenAI. They kind of forgot their mission, but this is a kind of nod to their mission. And so I would say though it's not beating Quinn in a lot of the benchmarks. So and DeepSeek, a lot of those are competitive, and I'm predicting we're not going to get any updates to these models for months or years. I feel like OpenAI releases a new open model every year or two. And so right now it's like competitive with the Chinese models, but I'm guessing 6 months from now, the Chinese models will have leapfrogged it. So if you're wanting to use an open source model, the Chinese ones might be better. The Chinese ones are also easier to jailbreak, where they'll just stop nagging you that you shouldn't be asking about how to kill 500 zombies with a nuclear bomb. So the OpenAI has taken security really seriously, which is actually irritating for authors using it for research.
I have questions about your solutions to small numbers of zombies.
I was trying to think of something that would trigger the AI off the top of my head.
Anyway, moving on.
More complicated. The final downside, real quick, is that it's more complicated. So going to ChatGPT is really easy. You just go to chatgpt.com and start typing, installing a model onto your computer, downloading the 20 gigabyte file. All of that requires a higher level of sophistication. So for most people, most of the time, I recommend that you use the cloud-based solution, like what you can find in the Patron Toolbox.
So, speaking of, Thomas is working on some really cool stuff in the Patron Toolbox. I kind of pitched an idea at him today about finding in-person sales events like cons or farmers markets or whatever, and see if it can find you stuff based on your location, and if it can give that lead time that a lot of these events require. Because the Tucson Book Festival, which is huge, it has 130,000 attendees every year. They just closed their application for March of 2026. So I got in, and I'm on a waiting list to pay $800 for a 10 by 10 booth. But if there's some kind of patron toolbox model, and so I've been bugging Thomas about this. I think it'd be a huge help to authors, and I just like giving him more work to do.
Yeah.
Speaking of more work for Thomas,
AI Thomas had gone through some major improvements. So this is the most expensive undertaking we've ever done at Author Media. I think we're $50,000 in on building AI Thomas. So AI Thomas is by far more expensive than all of the other AI tools put together. And if you're not familiar, AI Thomas is a large language model trained off of all of the episodes of all of my podcasts. And it allows you to pick my brain without actually talking to me. And I have found myself using AI Thomas to answer people's emails more quickly. So somebody will email me a quick question, which is the most common email subject in my inbox. And I will now often take that question and paste it into AI Thomas and then take that answer.
which is what you should have been doing in the first place.
Well, not everyone has access to the Patron Toolbox, and don't use me as a free API. I'll do this for you once, but after that, I really want you to pay for this because it costs me a staggering amount of money to build out the blog post to train this model and to train the model. But we have done some big. I've been working on it this week, and I want to share with you some of the improvements. One is that it will now share advice not just from me, but also from my guests. So I found that AI Thomas, since it identified as Thomas, would share my thoughts on a topic, but if I interviewed an expert on a topic, it wouldn't share that expert's feedback on the topic. And now it will say, Thomas thinks this, and he interviewed such and such expert who says this other thing. So it actually just got dramatically smarter because now you can hear Joanna Penn's take on something if she was on my episode, on my show, talking about some topic. It's also doing a better job at linking to blog posts. So one of the nice things about AI Thomas is that when it gives you some advice from human Thomas, it'll link to the blog post where it got that answer. It now says "Live long and prosper" at the end of every message.
That's important.
That's the biggest feature. Although it looks like there's a typo. It says "Live long and prosper." I'm gonna have to fix that. Oh, I want you to live a very long time.
Oh man! So we're about to move.
Somebody go test it. See if it says "Live long and prosper" two times. I need to know if I need to fix that.
So would you say this is more like the T1000 or the TX?
Apparently it's the T99 because it's not full. It does do better answers overall. It's using a model that's handling a large context window. This has been a surprisingly interesting challenge because at one point, every time somebody asked AI Thomas a question, it would cost me 75 cents to generate the answer in tokens. Because it would pull the entirety of everything into RAG. So it's not that expensive anymore. We're still, partly because I switched models. So I'm still working on this. This is not a finished project, but it also has better hallucination resistance. Although I found, well, some of the Patron Toolbox tools will hallucinate. We've never had much of a problem with hallucination with AI Thomas, partly because the way that it's structured and because the text is right there. So since it's constantly linking back to the posts where it got the answers, it makes it really hard for it to hallucinate. But if you ever can get it to hallucinate, do let me know because that'll be helpful because there's no such thing as a hallucination-free
It's
AI.
time to give
Just
AI
like there's
Thomas
no such thing as a
shrooms.
perfectly honest human. So anyway, patrontoolbox.com.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Make Thomas hallucinate.
patrontoolbox.com if you want to play with AI Thomas or any of the other 50 plus patron tools that I've made for authors.
All right, well, a little bit of a sad story. Traditional publishing optimism plunges to record lows, while indie optimism is steady. A new survey from the bookseller reveals a sharp decline in career optimism among publishing professionals, with the books, publishing, and journalism sector dropping from 54% in 2024 to just 43% in 2025, which is the steepest fall across all creative industries. The downturn is attributed to ongoing economic pressures, AI disruption, shrinking traditional sales channels, which are hitting the mid list authors the hardest. Indie authors are reporting more resilience because we have direct to reader models and diversified income streams like newsletters and merchandise. Um, if you're just starting out, it's just signals a need. You need to focus on building your brand and look at multiple publishing paths so that you can survive the upheaval right now in the book market. Uh,
Part of
really,
this is this connected with another story from Fandom Pulse that came out a few days ago, and their article was mainstream publishing exposed as a system where very few authors actually make money. And this is very true, and I think this is why, especially in traditional publishing, optimism is so far down because everyone is so poor. Like the amount of the pot of money is shrinking, and that while there are still people making money and the publishing companies are still profitable, the big ones are very profitable still.
yeah,
But who's getting squeezed is everyone who's not an elite. So the rich are getting richer, and everyone who's not already rich in traditional publishing is making less and less every year until they switch to indie, because the indies are doing very well
yeah.
financially, and
We
they
covered that
have
last
a
week.
yeah, and yeah, we covered this last week. This is kind of like the psychological version of the
Yeah,
hard news
exactly.
we have.
Yeah,
Last,
yeah,
if you want the details on this, listen. Last week we were sharing numbers and dollar signs, and we had some really good research on this. But it's not just a financial truth; it's also an emotional truth. In that
yeah.
traditional publishers are now sad
What's your
because
mental
they're
load?
poor.
Like, what this is like psychological stamina, right? Can you keep fighting in an already hard field when it looks like so many things are beating you down, and more people are showing they don't have the stamina to keep up.
Yeah,
So
and
there's
there's
more hope
always
in the
churn.
indie realm. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Thomas.
There's always churn. So you always have people who can't make it and they give up and they make room for new people. And that's been around forever.
The
And,
weak should die.
well, this is a winner takes all market. So there's
Yeah,
two kinds of markets in the world. There's standard distribution markets where everyone makes pretty close to the average. It's like union jobs are this way, plumbers are this way. Like you might find a plumber who makes twice as much as the average plumber, but you don't find a plumber who makes 10 times more than the average plumber. Whereas in sports, music, writing, acting, um, it can be where you'll have the top people who don't make 10 times more than the average. They make 10,000 times more than the average or a million times more than the average. Like it kind of breaks the chart. You get into like numbers with exponents and letters times more than the average person. So you have this really small aristocracy because people want to read what other people are reading, particularly in fiction. And so to him who has, more will be given. To him who does not have even what he thinks he has will be taken away. It's the same
right.
principle that we see in celestial bodies. The more gravity something has, the more space debris it pulls into its orbit, which increases its mass, which increases its gravity, and so on. So this is sometimes known as the 80-20 rule. It's not
I am a
80-20 in
celestial
publishing.
body.
It's it's like 99 or it's like 98-1, where 1% of people have about 98% of the money. So if you want it's especially in traditional publishing, there's not a lot of middle class, especially in fiction, but there is a very well paid aristocracy.
Yeah,
And J.K. Rowling is doing fine.
she's doing great,
She
great.
has plenty of money. Somebody posted that I have a 5-year plan for living on an island and having AI Thomas take over. I actually had an aha about this as I was on vacation and on my phone answering somebody's question on authormedia.social that the promise ended up being completely inverted. Instead of it turning work into vacation, it turned vacation into work. Even when on the tropical island, you're still having to work because you never get a
So,
moment's peace.
first of all, unless that island is also Texas, Thomas will not be leaving Texas. So,
Hey,
like,
once you get to God's country, why would you want to go anywhere else?
yeah, yeah.
All right. Next story. Audiobook surge as libraries drive indie audiobook revenue growth. Jonathan?
So, audiobook sales are continuing their meteoric rise, with now libraries emerging as a major revenue booster for indies. It's up 45% year over year per the Alley data. The Audio Publishers Association reports double-digit industry growth, which has been fueled by AI tools making production accessible. So if you're using 11 Labs, if you're using any of those tools we talked about on the show, that's driving an increase in indie production. Genres like romance and sci-fi are in the lead because platforms like Spotify are now expanding their options. Texas is a landlocked island. Okay, just think of it that way. If they could have a moat around it, they would. Okay. Sorry, back on
We do
topic.
have islands, though. We have quite a few islands, actually.
I'm sure they're better than everyone else's islands. The audiobook sector continues its explosive trajectory into 2025. Global revenues are projected to hit US dollars of $11.06 billion this year, which is a climb from $8.7 billion. So you're looking at an increase of about $2.5 billion,
Now, before we
according
get
to
too
Grandia
excited about
Research.
this, these are the global numbers. So this is all
Correct.
languages and all markets. So it's not like that's the pot of money that you have access to as an English writer in the US market. But we do have the biggest of the markets here in North America. And audio, we've been covering this story. We'll continue to cover it. Audiobooks are doing really well. And it's looking like Spotify's play into audiobooks with their new Spotify Audiobooks Plus program, which I have that report on if you want to read about it at authormedia.social, that they really are pulling more people into listening to audiobooks. And it's a totally different experience because you're paying per hour. And now one of the most important things is people finishing your audiobook. So the strategy used to be long audiobooks that were a bargain with a credit. The new strategy is short audiobooks that readers are likely to 100% complete. So it's a very different kind of
Well, it depends
meta
on what
strategy.
model. Yeah, it depends on what model you're in, though, because some places are paying per minute listened to, as opposed to completion of the, like YouTube pays for more time listened to than anything. So it just keep in mind your platform where the listener is, and that'll be how you're paid from it. You will have to have multiple strategies if you're on multiple platforms. There's a really interesting piece of data in this, and that Gen Z is pivotal because it shows that 86% are using audio for mood boosts, and 69% are finding joy in it. 58% deem it most engaging. I'm in a lot of Christian school groups, like homeschoolers and stuff like that, and they're always looking for books. And a lot of them are really looking for Libro and Hoopla, these library programs that allow you to listen to books for free as long as you have your library subscription. So that you really need to look into that as a revenue stream, particularly if you're YA, if you're uh, if you're writing mid grade, children's books, whatever, and you have an audio version, you really need to look into libraries because tons of parents are looking for this stuff to be able for their kids to listen to.
Yeah. And we're actually trying to get Spotify working because we have Sonos in our house. We have a Sonos in each of our kids' bedrooms. And we were trying to play a Spotify audiobook on the Sonos. And I think for younger people are drawn to Spotify in general. Uh, it's just kind of like older folks, like millennials and ancient people in their 30s and older, are more likely to use like Apple Music and Apple iTunes ecosystem, whereas younger people are more likely to be on Spotify. So yeah, for YA, libraries and Spotify may be as important as Audible. I still think Audible has a dominant market share. And we talked a lot about Audible last week and how they are lowering their payouts for authors. And we have an update on that story. Jonathan?
Before we hit that, though, there seems to be a war going on about Texas versus Australia in the comments. Both of you are overcompensating. Neither one of you is as great as you think. Okay, anyway. I just made Thomas mad. All right, so
The thing about the Australians is that it's already tomorrow there, so they're well rested.
bring it. I don't care. Anyway, Brandon Sanderson has responded to the Audible changes. So last week we talked about the change or not really a change, but light
No,
being shown on Audible's
it is a change.
strategy.
Yeah, in how they
But
calculate the
they've always had
royalties.
it kind of that way, though. It was just seen this time.
Well, no, let me explain. No, there was more of a change than you might realize. So when they switched from the 40% to the 50%, they then took the all you can eat buffet price and bundled it into the 50% and allowed the streaming people to have bites at the apple. So Audible is very concerned that everyone's going to move over to Spotify's just stream the audiobooks and don't own them model. And so they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where you can buy books with credits and stream some number of hours. And so while they boosted the 50%, it's only 50% of whatever's left over after all of the streaming authors have been paid. And currently, only some authors are eligible to get the streaming dollars. And so the net effect is for most authors get less under this new program, which started under a pilot in 2024 and has gone more and more mainstream in 2025.
Well, due to basically how authors are freaking out about this, how much they hate it, Daniel Green has put out a follow-up video to the breakdown he put out last week, and Brandon Sanderson has actually responded to this whole thing because everybody's like, Brandon, because like a year ago,
You're the only one Audible cares about.
who was in the news because he was going to bat for us authors because he hates Audible's royalty breakdown program, and so everyone's like, Brandon, yeah, any words for us? And he's not happy. I like that man is very difficult to ruffle. Like he's a very chill dude. He's a very nice guy. Like way the opposite of the way I am. This guy is really hard to ruffle, and he says this is not what we discussed. And we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. These are his words. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board as to figure out what to do with Audible. Because now not just did they play him. I mean, this makes him look bad, right? Because everyone's like, well, what backroom thing were you doing with them to really screw us over? And you were really getting mad. And he's like, okay, now you made me look bad. So now any negotiations that are going to take place between Brandon Sanderson and Audible are going to be more hostile. Because now there's been lies.
And going back to what we were talking about earlier, Sanderson is one of those celestial bodies. He's one of those elites who, when he pulls his books off of Audible, Audible actually feels
That's not very
it.
nice, Thomas.
he has gravitational pull in that
Stop talking, Thomas.
So, to him who has
Did you write a dating book or something?
He has millions of downloads of his audiobooks. And once you measure downloads in millions, Audible really cares because because if Audible is bringing in $10 of revenue per book and you sell 1 million copies of your book or of your books, that's $10 million worth of revenue. That's enough revenue that actually affects people's quarterly bonuses internally. And if he's unhappy and because he had initially, when I backed his Kickstarter for these books up here, the audiobooks were not available on Audible. He kept them off of Audible and had a really strong negotiating position and got Audible to give a bunch of concessions, not just for him, but for all indie authors. They had Audible flew some executives to Sanderson's house in Utah. They had a meeting, they shook hands, and Sanderson then allowed his books to be on Audible. And now it sounds like that handshake deal, I don't know if anything was in writing, but there was definitely a handshake deal has been violated. And Sanderson isn't just influential, but if he sicks his army on you, which he's never done to anyone ever. But he has an army that is ready to go to war for him. And Audible does not want that. So hopefully they will listen. I'm anticipating some clarification. One of the things I don't like about both Spotify and Audible's arrangements is that they're unbelievably complicated. When you read that report that I posted to authormedia.social, one of the things you realize looking at it is how convoluted the royalty compensation is, and that's on purpose.
Is so twisted.
It's so twisted, and it's and by making it complicated, it allows them to make the deal worse over time. But it's so complicated that people don't realize that the reason that their money is down is not actually because their sales are down, but because Audible changed the way they calculate the royalties. And so, if you're wanting to maximize your money per book, the best way to do it is to put your book on Kickstarter and get your 90% of the money. So you can sell your audiobook on Kickstarter. You can get 90% of the money. Kickstarter takes a 10% fee, and then you put it on Audible and Spotify.
And then it's a discovery mechanism. It's not even it's an entrance to your funnel, to your ecosystem, and not your source of revenue. So that's a great point right there. And there's actually a lot of creators who are doing that right now. A lot
I
of the more
disavow all comments in the chat under my name. This is all Jonathan posting with my face.
Oh, does it
I
show your face? For
disavow.
me, it shows
Yes.
my name.
No,
Oh,
it
this is
shows.
so good.
I'm removing these from the comments right now.
Back off.
Disavow,
Back off.
disavow,
You
disavow.
are taking away my free speech.
This is why you should come live for those of you watching the replay. Because I am deleting and retracting all of these comments right now.
I'm so happy
Message
right
retracted, disavow.
now.
So
Anyway, back
let's
to
talk
what I
about
was saying
KDP.
before Thomas started sweating.
Yeah, KDP
So-
images. This is an important story. If you have images in your book, and by images, this could be a photo, it could be a map, it could be a diagram. There's some new accessibility rules that you need to take into account. Jonathan?
So yeah, the publisher's requiring captions or alt tags for the accessibility for the visually impaired because the program needs something to read, right? So it can't show an image to a blind person. It has to read it out for them. So you need to have alt tags and captions on your images. Now, what images these might be? It could be the cover, although hopefully Amazon will have their own tag added to that one. This is the cover of this book.
I don't think it applies to the cover unless you repeat the cover inside the actual text of the book.
But then there are internal illustrations, and this is important for us fantasy authors. Some sci-fi, especially if you're doing diagrams or maps or like ships or something like that. Again, that's not really going to help the blind, but still they can know that there is an image or an illustration in there. And that is something that KDP is requiring just for accessibility purposes. So if you're going to publish a book on KDP or it's going to require you to update it maybe, make sure your images are named appropriately and have the captions and alt tags in there. That way you won't be in violation of anything or you won't be suppressed or anything like that.
So this is something GPT-5 can do for you. You can upload an image and say, describe this image for somebody who's blind, and it will give you a block of text that's actually surprisingly good text. I'm actually building a patron tool that does this as well, where you just upload the photo and click a button and it will give you a paragraph that you can tweak. But describing an image for somebody who can't see is actually trickier than it sounds because it's really easy to take for granted. What if you've always been sighted? It's hard to kind of imagine what can be imagined based off of words. So this is where I think I think this is 100% virtuous use of AI. I don't even people who hate AI, I don't think could object to this use of AI, helping authors better describe images so that people with visual impairments can better appreciate graphs and charts and maps and things like that.
No, because you're ending the jobs of the people who do that, Thomas.
I don't think that's a job. I think that's a task, which is different. Somebody's asking if Vellum does AI text. I'm actually checking on that right now. I think it has.
Yes,
text.
actually. So I'd used Vellum for mine, and it does allow you to put a caption under the image. So
alt text is an HTML tag.
Yeah.
And EPUBs are using HTML, and I believe, yes, according to ChatGPT-5, you can add alt text for images. But even if it can't, it will next week. Like if this is the new rule for KDP, Vellum will accommodate it.
Vellum has been putting in a lot of updates recently for a lot of things authors have been asking for, so they're kind of in an update phase right now. So I imagine even if it's not there, it's going to be, particularly if KDP is going to require it for images.
Speaking of tools, Plotter launches StorySnap. So Plotter is a tool for helping you organize the plot of your story. They've recently launched some AI tools to help you create story Bibles. This is basically a direct competition to the Patron Toolbox.
Right.
So we have a compendium section that's a small part of the Patron Toolbox. Plotter has StorySnap that's a whole tool specifically designed for what they call story Bibles. I don't like that language, so I use the word compendium instead, but it's the same concept. Their engine is powered by 4.0 Mini. We'll say the engine inside of the Patron Toolbox is currently powered by Gemini 2.5 Flash, I believe, because of the larger context window. But if you're already using Plotter, you may want to check out StorySnap and their other AI tools. Their pricing is $99 per book, or you can buy multiple books for $90. So you have to buy it over and over again. So if you have a lot of books, the Patron Toolbox definitely cheaper. And
Yeah, I don't see this as a competitor.
it's not a direct competitor, but they're starting to build like little modules inside of this that kind of function like some of the Patron Toolbox tools. So we're starting to see more and more competitors to the Patron Toolbox emerge. But right now, I feel like the Patron Toolbox is either as good at a cheaper price or better at a cheaper price. Although I may raise the price depending
Get in
on
now.
where token
Get in
prices
now.
go. Yeah, depending on where token prices go, I may have to raise the
Okay,
price.
so seriously, look at the price of this. Okay, that's where the market's going to be. Okay, if you're not in as a patron yet, you should get in now because Thomas is nice and will not raise the price on you if you're already in. Okay, I am not nice. I would totally raise the price on you.
I have thought about recently raising the price for all new folks. It's just a matter of timing on that.
Right. Right.
The other thing I've thought about doing is separating out all of the tools that touch images. So like the map maker and the coloring page maker and the book cover designer, and raising those to some kind of higher tier, because those are by far the most expensive tools for me, because I have to anyway.
Right.
For complicated reasons, the tokens. I heard Sam Altman talking about how the future economy may be where you're just paid in AI tokens instead of in dollars. Like, and at first
I kind of
like,
hate everything about that.
As that sounds silly, but then I was like, no, that makes sense. Like once you start paying for tokens, you start really thinking in terms of like how much things cost in terms of tokens.
Jeez. Well, Pseudowrite also launches a game-changing update for fiction writers using enhanced AI models and a chapter continuity. It announced a series of major platform updates. Muse 1.5, a proprietary AI model that they use, which has been optimized for fiction writing. Chapter continuity, which allows the AI to read entire manuscripts. And the integration of Anthropic's latest Claude 4 Sonnet and Claude 4 Opus models. And
So let me jump in real quick here. Claude 4 Sonnet is in the early tests that I have observed of people who are testing it against GPT-5 as good as GPT-5. So right now it's like one's better at some things and the other's better at other things. So if you're signing up for Pseudowrite today, it's not like you're using some like B tier AI. You're still using a cutting edge AI. I don't think it integrates with OpenAI, but historically, Claude was so much better at writing, at prose and poetry, that there was no real need to connect to OpenAI if you're connecting to Claude. I will say this is a tool very much to help you write your book using AI, which is not the approach that we use with a toolbox.
right.
The toolbox is about creating tools to primarily help you market your book, but also kind of nibbling around the edges in terms of making your book better. But if you're wanting to play around with AI assisted writing or AI assisted rewriting, there's some cool tools inside of Pseudowrite. The one that I like the best is you can highlight a scene and it will rework that scene using in 5 different versions using all 5 senses, which for somebody like me would actually be really helpful, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I don't have a sense of smell. I have like a 5% sense of smell. So like I often can't even tell when one of my kids it needs a diaper change. And which you would think would be a feature, but it is a bug because diaper rash is bad.
Yeah.
And so if I wanted to
write, father are you?
If I wanted to write a story that featured the sense of smell as a part of the story, I would absolutely have to use Pseudowrite, because never would I like describe, the detective coming in the room with the dead body and like this is what the dead body smelled like, because I can just barely smell a dead body or like rotting meat. I can't, like, that's a strong enough smell. This is actually not a good example. So I can kind of smell that. Like if trash gets bad enough, I can smell it a little bit. But I think we all have kind of weaknesses. Like some people are more visual and some people are more auditory. And so these kinds of tools can really help punch up your writing. I think you can overuse a tool like pseudo-write for sure, but I think that it's also a mistake to just write it off and be like, no,
Sure.
that's evil. That's not real writing. It's like, no, this is worth playing with.
Mm-hmm.
I have an interview with the CEO of pseudo-write years ago, but I will say AI has come a long way in the last 2 years. So what was cool then is now kind of mind breaking.
Yeah, like I've used Sudowrite several times over time. Like I've used it since it kind of came out. And I don't use it heavily. I don't use it a lot. But one thing that I struggle with, I tell people my spirit animal is a T-Rex because I struggle with static things. I'm very movement based. I'm very kinetic based. My action scenes are very good, but my descriptions of things that don't move, not that great. And Sudowrite has been a help for me for things that don't move. I would be like, hey, how would you describe a white city in the mountains with a river below it like this? And it will give me what it looks like or some metaphors, and it gives those five senses and stuff. And I will take all of that and I will AI Thomas hallucinate smells.
For those of you watching the replay, you're really missing out because this live chat is on fire today.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like using it for that, and I'll rewrite it. I'm not taking what it gives me because I find Sudowrite to be purple. It's really poetic. It's really overwrought in a lot of the prose that it churns out. I'm not literary. I don't write literary. Like I said, I tend to write more action-based, kinetic kind of
Can you
stuff.
tune its style? Because for science, I wrote
Not that I've seen.
okay, because you can do this in GPT. So ChatGPT has this kind of editor window that you can get it to generate on the right hand side, and you can get it to generate a chapter or chapter outline, and then you can work in this editor and then save it, and it will kind of train it on its style. So for fun, I wrote a whole nonfiction book in a day, and I generated the outline. And I was like, okay, now generate chapter one, and then I rewrote chapter one extensively. And then when it generated chapter two from the outline, stylistically it matched what I changed chapter one to, and so I was able to very quickly build out a book. I haven't done anything with
Okay.
this book.
I've not used Sudowrite that heavily. I don't use it to write parts of my book. I'm really looking at just scenes or objects.
Okay, Cami says you can tune the style in pseudo.
Oh, okay. All right.
And Cami would know because Cami
it doesn't have enough data on me because I don't use it that heavily.
Right.
But no, there were certain parts of Shades, for instance, Shades 2, that I would use Sudowrite for because I'm like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't have any idea what this should look like. What am I going to do here? And then Sudowrite will spit, of course, several versions of something out at me. And I'll take pieces of each one. Oh, that was cool. That was cool. That was cool. And then I'll create my own amalgamation out of it using that. And usually it'll actually spark new rabbit trails to go down and see what else might be cool in my brain. So it's really best treated as an assistant and not as something that's doing all the work for you and you're just collating it.
There's another way to use a tool like pseudo-write, which is you have it generate the next plot point, and then you can do anything but that, which forces you to not take the expected path with your story.
Right, which is really good, especially if you're trying to avoid tropic writing, which that's going to lead us right into our next news story.
Well, actually, we'll save this last story. I know. We have come back next week, everybody, because we have a really cool story that we don't have time to, and I don't want to rush it because it's a really good story.
Yeah, it is.
But I am doing Obscure No More office hours starting in just a few minutes. So for those of you who are students of Obscure No More, this is a special Q&A with me and Obscure No More students. You should have an email with the link to the Obscure No More office hours. So if you're not tired of the sound of my voice now, you will be by the end of that.
Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Eventually, we are going to be moving over to the author update channel. You'll see a lot of shorts over there right now, taking pieces out of what we're talking about here. Like and subscribe to that one too, so that when we make the switch, it's not going to take you by surprise and you're like, where's my show? Where's my program? And
ring the bell so that you can be notified on your phone when we go live. Ringing the bell is particularly important if you want to be here for that opening story, which is usually the most important story.
Let me do the cliffhanger.
Okay. Give us a cliffhanger and then we'll go to the close.
The death of rapid release.
Bum, bum, bum.
To be
Tune in next
continued.
time to Author Update. I'm Thomas Umstadt Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Sugar.
Live long and prosper.